Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Cruz, for inviting me to testify at this hearing regarding the current state of civil and human rights in the United States. And thank you, Senator Durbin, for advocating for justice and equality. I've always valued your advice and counsel. Your leadership on the Judiciary Committee and as chairman of this subcommittee has contributed greatly to our nation and to protecting the civil rights of all of us, and I came here to say thank you. Before I begin, I want to extend my heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of Michael Brown and Eric Garner. I think we can all agree that the loss of life is a grave tragedy. As a parent, I especially want to say to the parents that I'm so sorry for your loss. In the wake of the grand jury decisions to not indict the officers involved in the deaths of Michael Brown and Eric Garner, communities throughout the country have taken to the streets to protest. Many are deeply dissatisfied with decisions not to prosecute the police officers in Ferguson and Staten Island, and transparently examine their actions and the circumstances that led to the deaths of two unarmed black men. The protests also expose an equally disturbing issue, that the killings of Brown and Garner are not isolated issue. I believe the visceral reaction around the country is because these cases represent the countless young men who are treated unjustly by the police, and many question their ability to receive justice through the current court system. These deaths expose gaps in our criminal justice system, in particular, the grand jury process, and the inherent conflict in bringing charges against law enforcement. Clearly, we have more work to do to build trust between communities and law enforcement and our system of justice. African Americans and Latinos are disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system overall. Racial profiling, condoned officially or unofficially by some in law enforcement, forces blacks and Latinos to contend with the criminal justice system more frequently in a completely different way than many others in our society. Minority communities have a higher prosecution rate, and at the post-conviction stage, sentencing orders tend to be harsher among minority defendants. All too often, Latino and black are victims of excessive use of force at the hands of rogue police officers. The issue is only exacerbated when local and state police departments are equipped with military equipment, as was the case in Ferguson, Missouri this past summer. The cycle continues, as we saw just last week when grand juries, guided by prosecutors who work on a daily basis with the police, failed to even call for a trial in open court. It is not surprising that the system breeds mistrust. This vicious cycle not only affects individuals, but also affects our African American and Latino communities as a whole. When we see children like Michael Brown and Eric Garner and Trayvon Martin, we see our own families and our own loved ones. Ask any Latino or African American parent whether they live in a suburb or in a housing project, and they will tell you they fear for their children's safety every time they leave the house. Rather than thinking of the police as public servants who will protect the safety of their children, too often they think of local police as one of the harshest their children have to face. I think only of my daughter, Jessica, who was stopped because she was driving in a too nice of a car. She was with her friends in her own neighborhood. Her mom and dad apparently made the mistake of living in a neighborhood they could afford to live in, not one the police officer thought she should be living in. Or when I was stopped and refused admission to this very Capitol complex earlier in my year because, as the Capitol Hill police officer said, I didn't look like a congressman. Too many have faced profiling, subtle and explicit, annoying and yes, potentially dangerous, when the profiler has a badge or has a gun. I respect and appreciate the hard work that law enforcement officers do to keep our community safe. We have worked to get more cops on the street, to invest in violence reduction programs, to reduce the number of guns in our communities that often target police officers, and to make sure we honor and pay police officers for the dangerous and often thankless work police officers do. I'm also proud to be an original co-sponsor of the End Racial Profiling Act, which I think is clearly and sorely needed. With regard to the revised profiling guidelines issued yesterday by the Department of Justice, I am deeply disappointed that they did not close significant loopholes, especially as they pertain to the Department of Homeland Security, which will allow whole sections of America's largest law enforcement entities, including Customs, Border Patrol, and Transportation Security Administration, to continue to profile many innocent Americans. I'm also perplexed and disheartened that the new guidance applies only to federal agents, but exempts local, county, and state law enforcement. Civil and human rights today in America continues to be a work in progress. Thanks to the leadership of Chairman Durbin and many of my colleagues, including those seated with me today, we are able to celebrate the strides we have made to create a more equal and just nation for all and chart the course of continued progress in the future. But it is tempered by knowing that we cannot rest in the pursuit of justice and fairness, especially in the face of tragic and needless cost of life. We have come a long way. Senator Booker is a testament to that. My buddy Keith is a testament to that. I hope to be a testament to that. Let's continue to do the good work. I thank you for your wonderful leadership, Senator Durbin.